Hello and welcome back to our series on Jupiter in the 10th house. This is episode 5, so we're going to be looking at Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house, and our example chart will be Harrison Ford. In the first episode of this series, we established the basic template of what to expect from Jupiter in the 10th house in general. You can watch that if you haven't already, or rewatch it. But just to summarize right here, Jupiter in the 10th house it represents someone who is sage-like, transparent, and famous. Now we want to do that same kind of summary for Jupiter in Cancer. I've done an entire video on Jupiter in Cancer. I'll put the link to that in the description below if you want to go into more details. For now, to summarize it, Jupiter in Cancer is very familial, introspective, prosperous, and optimistic. The familialness, what I mean by that is that Jupiter is parental and Cancer is mothery. So you get a person who plays a parental role. Doesn't necessarily have to be with children. It can be just a parental role in society, and they play it in a motherly way. So they tend to care about the relationships and things that they have with people. That's what I mean by familial. And it does work well literally with family. So now that we have a summary of Jupiter in the 10th house and Jupiter in Cancer, we can go ahead and interpret what Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house is like, but we could go even one step further to get more detail. If we use a whole sign house system, which I highly recommend, then we know that if Jupiter is in Cancer in the 10th house, then it has to be the lord of the 3rd and the 6th houses. So we can interpret that and add that information into this basic set. The 10th is the house of the public. The 3rd is the house of your ambition. And the 6th is the house of your contest. So when you're taking the lord of ambition and strength and combining it, making it also the lord of competition, and putting it in the 10th house where it belongs. In other words, we are supposed to use our strength and our competitiveness out in the world, not here in the house. So you get good effects from having this lord of these two strong houses go out into the open 10th house. So you expect a person to be strong in a good way, assertive in a good way, in an appropriate way, and dominant, again, in a good way. Now we have these three sets of information about our situation, Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house. Let's look for synergy between the three sets. 3rd and 6th lord in the 10th house is assertive, but the Jupiter in Cancer is introspective, yet Jupiter in the 10th house is transparent. So there's a very interesting thing going on. So the introspectiveness of Jupiter in Cancer doesn't really seem to go well with the lordship situation and the assertiveness that comes from it. But the transparency of Jupiter in the 10th forms a very nice bridge between those two extremes. Remember that transparency is just a shorthand word for that stuff that we explored in episode 1. Transparency means the depth of the person. The inner depths comes out to be expressed easily. So that's what I mean. It's forming a depth, a bridge between the deep introspectiveness of Jupiter in Cancer with the strong assertiveness of the 3rd and 6th lords being in the 10th house. So when Jupiter is in Cancer in the 10th house, expect the native to really crave the opportunities to show their heart, to really express themselves. They will really seek that opportunity, and they kind of need it. Without that opportunity, they feel sad, depressed. Another thing to consider is that the 3rd and the 6th lord in the 10th house is very dominant. And Jupiter in the 10th house is very impactful. It's sage-like. So with Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house, expect a person who's a really good leader. And specifically, they're going to kind of thrive on opportunities to lead. Not because they want to dominate or something, but because they enjoy leading people. That's how they help other people. So it doesn't always necessarily have to mean the person likes to be a commander or a boss or something. They can be anybody that you look at and pay attention to and get your information from. They like, people with Jupiter and Cancer in the 10th house actually like to be seen. They need to be seen. They don't feel complete unless they're recognized. Finally, Jupiter in Cancer is familial, like parental, and Jupiter in the 10th house is very famous, and that seems to be a bit at odds. So Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house is a person who is career-oriented at the expense of their own family development and things like that, or their own health and so on, their personal concerns. Our example of a famous person with Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house is Harrison Ford. I think this is a really good illustration of what we're talking about. Not only Harrison Ford himself, but the characters that he plays, like Han Solo and Indiana Jones, they really illustrate this picture that we're talking about here. And it's sort of interesting also that he has that kind of character, and he basically plays himself. So that shows you how this Jupiter in Cancer 10th house native, they crave the opportunity to be themselves and to be seen as themselves. And this assertiveness and strength and dominance is really well illustrated in Harrison Ford and his characters. It's not as overbearing, militaristic assertiveness and dominance. It's this kind of cool, attractive confidence, dominance. Now, if we look at his chart in more detail, we can ask, why do we have such a good actor? It's not that Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house signifies an actor. It's not unconducive to it. But that is not what made Harrison Ford an actor. So let's figure out what does make him an actor. Well, one thing is, if the 10th house is Cancer, then the first house must be Libra, and Libra is very conducive to actors. But on top of that, he has Mercury on his 10th house cusp. Mercury is instrumental for an actor. And the 10th house is the house for career. Furthermore, his 10th lord joins his 11th lord in the 10th house. The 11th lord is going to give performance and entertainment to the 10th lord, the lord of career. And in the 10th house, the house of career. And on top of that, his first lord joins his 5th lord in the 9th house, Gemini. So his first lord is strongly influenced by the 5th lord, the lord of creativity, in Gemini, which is very instrumental for actors. And this is also the clue to why he's so successful. Sure, Jupiter in the 10th house indicates success and fame, but not by itself. It's not really, nothing by itself in astrology is going to produce any terrific result or terrible result. You always have to have things line up and combine with like things. So for example, here everything is lining up to show a person who's going to be recognized and famous. For example, the first lord joining the 5th lord in the 9th house is a tremendous Raja Yoga, and Raja Yogas are very, very, very important for identifying people who are going to become famous and successful. So now I think you can see how an individual's birth chart modifies the basic conditions that are expected out of the textbook from, say, Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house. Jupiter in Cancer in the 10th house is supposed to be a person that craves the opportunity to really express who they really are and who wants to be seen and known for who they are and wants to lead others and is kind of willing to risk anything for that. Now, that itself is a modification on a deeper template, which is just Jupiter in the 10th house in general, as being someone who's sage-like, transparent, and famous. You want to understand the whole context of your chart, the soil in which your interpretive seeds grow, then visit my website, vicdecara.com, and click Readings. My complete chart report explains each and every nook and cranny of your chart and will keep you occupied in self-discovery for years. I also have 2 groundbreaking new reports. The first of these, Your Nakshatra, organizes your active nakshatras in order of their importance to you. and presents the fundamental interpretations for the planets that occupy them. The newest report, Star Strength, uses a system called Tara to unfold 90 interpretations of the nuanced relationships between all the planets in your chart, which paints a rich and detailed picture of how your various strengths cooperate or compete with each other. Order these or any of my reports and accelerate your journey to deeper self-understanding.